Hello, in the first video of this series I listed the qualities that I look for in a table tennis shoe, and in the second video I looked at what these shoes were like out of the box, these Asics Gel-Hunter 2s, and in this third video we're going to look at what these shoes are actually like to wear, both when new and after approximately 40 hours use, which is about 6 to 7 weeks use for me. The type of qualities I'm looking at in this particular video are how well they cushion my feet and legs from shock, if they give me the support I need, especially for my instep, how flexible and stable they are so I can move with ease and without the risk of turning an ankle, and how good the grip is. All of which will contribute to how comfortable these shoes are to actually wear. And because I wanted to test the shoe and only the shoe and not the floor surface, I carried out these tests on the hardest surface I could find, the concrete slabs in the back garden. And then, because I play on a purpose-built table tennis floor, which itself provides support and cushioning, I repeated these tests at our table tennis centre and finished by trying them in open play. These are my first impressions directly after trying them for the first time at the table tennis centre. Okay, what's the conclusion then? Well, to be honest, I wouldn't have got a size 7.5 if I'd known what I do now. They actually do feel quite a big shoe. Whether or not they'll be too big, I don't know. I like the width, that's good for my foot. But if my shoe size is normally a 7, these are a little bit long and they bend just a little bit high on the foot. Having played for about half an hour or so, I'd have to say that my feet are also aching a little bit, particularly on the heel and that area of the foot. Now, before you put my aching feet down to me buying a size slightly bigger than I would normally do, consider this footage. Look how much flex or bend there is with my bare foot, and again with the Reebok Real Flex transitions. And then compare that bend with the Gel-Hunter 2s. The Reeboks mirror the angle my bare foot bends at. The Asics don't. The angle is much less. When new, there's a stiffness and rigidity to these Asics which seems to prevent my foot from pivoting naturally. In other words, I think the Asics and my feet are fighting each other. My feet want to bend, the Asics don't want to let them, they want to keep that rigidity. And that battle is what's causing the aching both around the heel and again around the actual ball of the foot, because I cannot get them to bend where I want them to, not when they're new. But the stability is very, very good, the traction is very, very good, and it's not to the extent that you're going to get stuck and fall over. Good and grippy, but not suicidal grip. Nice and light, feet aren't hot, so perhaps my mistake getting the wrong size, but as I say, time will tell. If these stretch like the High-Tex did, I could have problems, but for now I'll stick with them. They've got good padding, good bounce, I like them. The Reeboks that I was using, a little bit too springy, too mushy on this type of flooring, and there's the chance of rolling the ankles. You felt a little bit higher off the ground, and it didn't have the same edge that these do. It stops it from falling over. So, thumbs up for the Asics. Just make sure you get the right size, and if possible don't make my mistake. Try them on first. But shoes don't stay new for long, and because I had concerns about them out of the box, I decided to test them again after about 7 weeks use, about 35 to 40 hours. And that's used both at the centre, which has got the sprung floor, and my own home venue, which is a hard lino floor. So there's a good contrast between the type of floor surfaces I use. This is what I found. Lightweight. Whilst not the lightest shoe that I've ever worn, that would be these Real Flex transitions that you can see here, which you've already seen how much lighter they are. The actual Asics Gel-Hunter 2s were still light enough for them not to feel like they were a weight around my feet. When I moved with these, it wasn't like I was dragging around anything heavy, and my legs didn't get tired because of that. So in terms of their weight, I'd have to say these are a good shoe. Not too light, and certainly not too heavy. I like them. Comfort. Lots of things are going to affect how comfortable these shoes are to wear. Padding. Out of the box, I mentioned how I was concerned about the lovely foam padding around the top of the shoe and how it might compress over time, making the shoe feel bigger around the opening for my foot. Well, that has actually happened. This padding around here is nowhere near as thick and spongy as it was when I first got it. It feels pretty much dead to the touch. And whilst this hasn't affected the Asics' ability to hug and cushion the back of my foot, this top part around here definitely feels bigger, and that makes the shoe feel bigger. Fortunately though, when I started to wear these, I wore them with these top eyelets not being used. That's not the case anymore. To make the shoe feel snug around the top of my foot, I now lace the Gel-Hunter 2s all the way up to the top, and that has compensated for the bigger feel these shoes develop over time. Another plus side of doing these laces all the way up to the top here is that when I first wore them, and they were only done up to about there, when I tied them, even with a double bow, the laces they're long, and they were actually dragging on the floor when I was playing. And that was just a little bit dangerous. If I actually stood on that, I could twist my ankle or turn over. But now I've done them all the way up to the top, when I tie these, the laces no longer actually dangle on the floor. So I'm much happier about that. Killed two birds with one stone. Breathability and heat retention. The longest I've ever worn these shoes in one go was for about 9 hours, when Andrew Rushton came down and did a second training camp for us in August. And that training camp was all about footwork exercises. So these shoes got a lot of workout. And the only time that I actually felt my feet getting hot was when I actually stopped playing, which surprised me. But on second thoughts, if you think about it, if my feet are moving around, then there's air constantly moving over this mesh in here. So there's ventilation and the air can come in and go out. If they're stationary, there's not the same movement of air over the actual shoe, which is probably why they did get a little bit warmer. Now that was the longest period I've worn them, and they were still comfortable. Typically I wear these for about 3 to 4 hours on match nights. And again, I'd have to say that in the whole time I've worn them, my feet have never become uncomfortable in terms of heat, either being too cold or too warm. So again, on the ventilation side, I like these shoes a lot. Cushioning, stability. The hard feel of these shoes is also reduced. If you have a look around the midsole, you can see how much easier it is for me to push my thumb into this part of the shoe. And this softening happens all around the midsole. You can even see here crease lines in the rubber where it's been compressing under impact. They weren't here when they were new. And over time, even this hard sole has got softer. There is no way I could get that much type of give when the shoe was new. It's almost like the pounding of my feet has tenderised the sole and the midsole, like you would a piece of meat. And it's the same with the insole here too. If I press against that, there's more give in it. And again, when my foot's actually inside the shoe, you can feel it sinking down just a little bit each time you walk and move about. When that was new, it was hard. You could feel it hard under your foot. And most important to me, whilst rubber parts of the midsole and sole have softened, this blue piece has remained firm. It's still supporting the arch in my foot, whilst at the same time helping to prevent the Asics from becoming unstable and potentially twisting under me. That excellent lateral support, it's still there. And when the shoe does bow a little bit outwards, it's here where the upper meets the actual midsole. And even then, this synthetic part of the shoe that you see here stops the foot from splaying out too much, keeps it nice and compact, but there's enough give in this actual shoe for them still to be comfortable and give the support that I'm looking for. Flexibility. Now I did say the first time I wore these at the table tennis centre that they caused my feet to ache, particularly around here and here on the actual shoe. And I put that down to the fact that there wasn't much bend in the shoe and my feet were fighting against them. Well, over time I've noticed a couple of things about these soles and also the midsole. Firstly, the amount of flexibility in this sole seems to have increased with use. Compare that with when I originally had these shoes out of the box. There is absolutely no way that I could get an amount of bend. Twist, there's a little bit more twist there as well, but not an excessive amount. You can also see now when I lay these shoes flat, there's a much more of a curl there, and much more flexible. And that's probably due to the fact that I play with my weight quite often on the ball of my foot, and these shoes are learning to replicate the movements that my feet want to make. So the Asics Gel-Hunter 2s are definitely more flexible than they were when they came out of the box. And that for me is not a bad thing. It means that they're working more with my foot and less against it. So getting better with age, not worse. Grip. Now if you're like me, you'll be wearing your table tennis shoes from the house to the venue. I don't actually put them in the bag and put them on when I get there. And that means that over time they're going to pick up little pieces of grit, stone, lots of dust off the road, and also from the venue. I don't know if you can see on that, there's little bits of mud and grit and stuff. So all I'm going to do is get a cloth, like we did the rubbers. Shoes will also pick up. And there's a bowl of just water in here. If I just wipe this sole down, get rid of all the dust. Bit of muck as well. I'll do the same with these Reeboks. make it a fair test. Okay, I wouldn't recommend playing table tennis with wet shoes, but you will find if you're on a slippy floor, some people will get a paper towel and wet it and then stand on it to help give the shoes better grip. I've done it myself, as long as you don't do it too much. It's a nice way of keeping your shoes clean, although why you're really playing on a slippy dusty floor in the first place is questionable. Organisers. So let's just make that these shoes are dry. There we go. Just give it. There you go. You've got 2 clean shoe soles. And I'll do the test again. I'll put the Asics 1 second. There we go. Shoelaces out of the way. Just like the rubber test we did a couple of years ago. Okay, Asics are behind them. Now if I just pivot them again. Reebok still go first, and then the Asics. So where it's clean or dirty, these Asics have got better grip than these particular Reebok Transitions. And best of all about the grip with these shoes, I can honestly say that in the 6 or 7 weeks that I've been using them, not once has my foot come close to getting stuck because the grip's too much and then twisting my ankle. There is grip there, and it is very good grip, and it's still very good grip, but it's not what I would call suicidal grip. I can turn and pivot a little bit. Very, very nice grip on these shoes. Nothing for me to worry about. And it's not got worse as they've got older either. Well pleased with that. Build quality. That was another issue that we were looking at. And I had a lot of concern about these shoes. Not just with the foam, which we looked at earlier, but on the actual, get that out of the way, instep of these shoes, there was a foam padding bit here, which I was concerned over time could be ripped or come loose. If anything, that foam flap has been compressed flat, so it's harder now to pull it back than when new. And there's been no tear in the material, nor has there been any stitching coming loose. I was also a little bit worried about the instep on these shoes. They were stitched in, and how the Asics might possibly have the problem of that insole wearing out. Well, if you look at not just the insole but also the side of the shoe, you can see these black and white bubbles. They're actually bits of material which have rubbed off the socks I wear. So it actually looks like the insole and the sides of this shoe are tougher than my socks, and my sports socks are proper sports socks, they're Wilsons. The only downside to the toughness of the inside of these shoes with these little bubble bits is that over time they can feel like little bits of grit, particularly on the insole there. So once or twice I've had to take the shoe off and actually remove these little bits of fluffy stuff. But other than that, it's refreshing to know that these shoes look like they're stronger than the socks, and it's the socks that are going to wear out, not the shoe. Other parts about the build quality, I was concerned about the blemish that these shoes had. You can just still see it there on the shoe. Well, that blemish hasn't got any worse, so that's exactly what it looks like it was, a blemish, which is also nice to know. None of the stitching or finishing on the stitching, which I talked about, has got any worse. It's not ripped. Everything is still nice and securely stitched in around the actual shoe. And the only downside, I suppose, or thing to look at is this meshing has gone a paler yellower colour. Probably the sweat of my foot. Nice thought, but it's lost its colouring. Now, I've never cleaned these shoes, but if you're somebody who likes looking at spotlessly clean shoes, you'll have to find a way to keep that clean, because they certainly seem to get mucky or absorb the sweat from my foot. Final roundup. In terms of table tennis use, which is what I actually bought these table tennis shoes for, these Asics Gel-Hunter 2s offer me the most comfort and support that I've ever had from a table tennis shoe, and the build quality has been excellent, and they get better with age. I'd honestly have to say that the biggest compliment I can pay them is that once these are on my feet and I'm playing table tennis, I never think about them. Don't notice them. That's the best thing I can say about a pair of shoes. No worry, no second thoughts, put them on and play. They are excellent. The only thing that mystifies me is why I've had to buy, well, something that's described as a handball shoe to play table tennis with. There's over 300 million table tennis players in the world. It's the 5th most played sport in the world. And yet major manufacturers like Asics, Nike, Reebok, can I find a table tennis shoe? Dedicated table tennis shoe? No. We have to put up with basketball shoes, handball shoes, volleyball shoes, general wear shoes. Yes, you can play with butterfly and jeweler shoes and Donic shoes and other types of shoes, Stiga. But why aren't the major manufacturers making table tennis shoes for us? It doesn't make commercial sense. So come on guys, make us a table tennis shoe, please. Thank you for watching.